How the Grinch Stole Christmas. Every Who down in Whoville liked Christmas a lot. But the Grinch, who lived just north of Whoville, did not. The Grinch hated Christmas, the whole Christmas season. Now please don't ask why. No one quite knows the reason. It could be his head wasn't screwed on just right. It could be perhaps his shoes were too tight. But I think the most likely reason of all may have been that his heart was 2 sizes too small. Bing! But whatever the reason, his heart or his shoes, he stood there on Christmas Eve, hating the Whos, staring down from his cave with a sour, grinchy frown at the warm, lighted windows below in their town. For he knew every Who down in Whoville beneath was busy now, hanging a mistletoe wreath. And they're hanging their stockings, he snarled with a sneer. Tomorrow is Christmas, it's practically here. Then he growled with a Grinch, fingers nervously drumming. I must find some way to stop Christmas from coming. For tomorrow he knew, bing! All the Who girls and boys would wake bright and early. They'd rush for their toys. And then, oh the noise, noise. That's the one thing he hated, that noise. Bing! Then the Whos, young and old, would sit down to a feast. And they'd feast, and they'd feast, and they'd feast. They would feast on Who pudding and rare Who roast beast, which was something the Grinch couldn't stand in the least. And then, they'd do something he'd least like of all. Every Whoville. The tall and the small would stand close together with Christmas bells ringing. They stand hand in hand. And the Who, so they would start singing. They would sing, and they'd sing, and they'd sing. And the more Grinch thought of this Who Christmas sing, the more Grinch thought, I must stop this whole thing. Why, for 53 years, I've put up with it now. I must stop this Christmas from coming. But how? Bing! Then he got an idea. An awful idea. The Grinch got a wonderful, awful idea. Bing! I know just what to do. The Grinch laughed in his throat, and he made it quick. Santa Claus hat and a coat, and he chuckled and he clucked. Oh, what a great Grinchy trick! With this coat and this hat, I'll look just like Saint Nick. All I need is a reindeer. Quick! The Grinch looked around, but since reindeer are scarce, there was none to be found. Do you think that stopped the old Grinch? No. The Grinch simply said, if I can't find a reindeer, I'll make one instead. So he called his dog Max. Then he took some red thread, and he tied a big horn on the top of his head. Bing! Then he loaded some bags and some old empty sacks on a ramshackle sleigh, and he hitched up old Max. Then the Grinch said, giddy up. And the sleigh started down toward the homes where the Whos lay a snooze in their town. Bing! All their windows were dark, quite snow filled the air. All the Whos, oh, they were dreaming sweet dreams without care. And then he came to the first little house in the square. This is stop number one, the old Grinchy Claus hissed, and he climbed to the roof, empty bags in his fist. Then he slid down the chimney. It was a rather tight pinch, but if Santa could do it, then so could the Grinch. He got stuck once. Okay, hold on. For a moment or two. Then he stuck his head out of the fireplace flue, where the little Who stockings all hung in a row. These stockings are the first to go. Then he slithered and slunk with a smile most unpleasant around the room, and he took every present. Pop guns and bicycles, roller skates, drums, checkerboards, tricycles, popcorn, and plums. He stuffed them in bags. Then the Grinch very nimbly stuffed all the bags one by one up the chimbley. Then he slunk to the icebox, and he took Who's feast. He took the Who pudding, and he took the roast beast. He cleaned out that icebox as quick as a flash. Why, the Grinch even took their last can of Who hash. Bing! And then he stuffed the food up the chimney with glee. Now, the Grinch grinned, I'll stuff up this tree. And the Grinch grabbed the tree, and he started to shove, when he heard a small sound like the coo of a dove. He turned around fast, and he saw a small Who. It was little Cindy Lou Who was not more than 2. The Grinch had been caught by this tiny Who daughter, who'd got out of bed for a cup of cold water. She stared at the Grinch and said,
Santa Claus? Why? Why are you taking our Christmas tree? Why?
Ding. But you know, that old Grinch, he was so smart and slick. He thought up a lie, and he thought it up real quick. Oh, why, my sweet little tot? Fake Santa Claus lied. Let's see, there's a light on this tree that won't light on one side, yes. So I'm taking it home to my workshop, my dear, and I'll fix it up there, and I'll bring it right back here. And his fib fooled the child, and he patted her head, and he got her a drink, and he sent her to bed. And when Cindy Lou Who went to bed with her cup, he went to the chimney and stuffed it right up. Then the last thing he took was the log on the fire, and he went up the chimney, himself, that old liar. On the walls there was nothing but hooks and some wire, and one speck of food that he left in the house was a crumb, not even enough for a mouse. Bing! Then he did the same thing to the other Who's houses, leaving crumbs much too small for their mouses. It was dawn, all the Who's still abed, all the Who's still a snooze when he packed up his sled, packed it with presents, ribbons and wrappings, tags and tinsels and trimmings and trappings. Bing! 3,000 of Mount Crumpet, he rode with this load to the tip-top to dump it. To the Who's. He was grinchiously humming. They're finding out now that no Christmas is coming. They're just waking up. I just know what they'll do. Their mouths will hang open a minute or two. Then the Who's down in Whoville will cry. Bing. That's a noise. It's a noise I must hear. So he paused, and the Grinch put his hand to his ear. And he did hear a sound rising over the snow. It started low, and then it started to grow. Bing! That sound wasn't sad. Why, it sounded merry. It couldn't be so. But it was merry, very. He stared down at Whoville. The Grinch had popped his eyes. He shook. What he saw was a shocking surprise. Bing! Every Who down in Whoville, the tall and the small, was singing without any presents at all. Why, he hadn't stopped Christmas from coming. It came. Somehow or other, it just came the same. And the Grinch, with his Grinch feet, ice cold in the snow, stood puzzling and puzzling. Oh, how could it be so? It came without ribbons. It came without tags. It came without those packages, boxes, or bags. And then he puzzled 3 hours. His puzzler was sore. Then the Grinch thought of something he quite hadn't thought before. Maybe Christmas doesn't come from a store. Maybe Christmas, perhaps, means a little bit more. Bing! And what happened then? Well, in Whoville, they say, the Grinch's small heart, it grew 3 sizes that day. And the minute his heart didn't feel quite so tight, he whizzed with his load. And the minute his heart didn't feel quite so tight, he whizzed with his load through the bright morning light, and he brought back those toys and the food for the feast, and he, yes he, bing! He himself, he carved the roast beef.